Recently a friend of mine sent me this photo of a display cabinet that he'd spotted by some skips on an industrial estate. And at the time I was hundreds of miles away and at a wedding. But I really liked the look of it, so I got in touch with my brother and he kindly got in touch with the company where the skip was, a company called Carpets Plus Limited here in Norwich. And the manager there was really helpful and said that my brother could come and take it away. So a big thank you to Carpets Plus. I've now had the unit dropped off at my house, so it's time to get it in the workshop. Now I've got the unit in the workshop, I can look it over and see what needs to be done. And I think the biggest problems are down here on the bottom where two of the legs are broken off. This leg here is really solid, but it can probably still do with some reinforcement, seeing as this other front leg is very loose and it's also split. As far as the back legs are concerned, well, they are down here in bits and there are some signs of woodworm. I've already applied a woodworm treatment to these parts and also to the bottom of the unit, but I think it's probably worth applying some more just to be on the safe side. In terms of what else is wrong with it, well, there is a bit of damage down here on the sides. The top of the unit is actually in quite good condition, apart from one or two scuffs like that one. The door has a lock with no key and also no handle. There are some shelf pins inside the unit, but no shelves. And this back panel on the top is slightly loose. And also there are some areas where the veneer has chipped off. And there's another area of concern in terms of the veneer over here. It seems to have bubbled up for some reason. Surprisingly, all of the glass is intact and in really good condition.
I started by removing the two back legs and the one loose front leg, as they all needed some repair.
The first of the back legs that I need to repair has no signs of woodworm and a nice clean split on the wood, so I can simply re-glue that. But first I need to remove the nails. I'm not going to attempt to pull these ones out, I'm just going to grind those flat. And now I can just flatten the top of that leg. Not only do I need to re-glue this piece, but there's also a split in the wood here, so I'm going to wedge some glue in there and I can clamp both pieces on at the same time. And I don't need to worry about old glue inside this joint because it hasn't actually failed at the glue joint, it's just the wood itself that's cracked.
I wedged an awl in the crack to open it up and got as much glue in there as I could. And then I could glue on the other piece.
I've applied tape and ideally I would clamp this up, but this is just too much of an awkward shape to clamp. So what I'm going to do is apply pressure to the joint and fire in a couple of staples where the join is. And that will hold it until the glue dries.
I sanded the bottom of the cabinet ready for the leg to be reattached.
I cleaned up this surface with a sander, ready for glue, and I've just shaped this block which will be glued on here to support the leg. That was quite awkward to shape because I needed to get it so that it was at the right angle to be flush with the top of the leg, so I just did that on the disc sander.
Then I glued and nailed the leg support piece to the back of the leg. Then I could add glue, drill pilot holes, countersink and screw the legs to the bottom of the unit.
I know I'll probably take some flack here for using drywall screws instead of wood screws, but these ones were the ones that I had that were the right length and they're plenty strong enough. I am tempted to add some more screws through these pieces into the bottom just to give it some more strength, as the screws won't be visible anyway. The second back leg is the one with the woodworm damage, and what I'm going to do is cut away these pieces flush with this central block of the leg, and then I can mount new pieces to the leg and reshape them to match the originals.
I used the bandsaw to cut away most of the woodworm damage to the wings of the leg, and then I removed the rest with the hand plane.
There's still a bit of woodworm damage here, but that looks like a good enough surface to glue. The next job is to add the wings to this leg to make it look like this one here. And I've had a look at the wood, and the closest match that I've got to this in my workshop is this, which is beech. This came from an old dining table top. So I think I'm going to make the wings from this, and then I can later try to stain the wood to match the colour of the legs. These wings extend about 70 millimeters from the leg, so I need to cut off something like that shape, and that will give me a nice side grain joint to glue to here.
I cut two pieces on the bandsaw, one for each wing to form the new leg.
This is the good back leg that's ready to be installed, and this is the back leg that needs to be rebuilt, and I need to use this as a template for this. I've marked up on here which is the back side of the leg and which is the side of the leg, and I need to replicate this angle here onto this piece of wood, which will create my wing. So it needs to be like that. Therefore I need to take about 5 millimeters off here, something like that. And I'm just going to do this by eye. I'll keep making adjustments until it looks right. And that's about 13 degrees off the 90-degree position. I've tipped the table on my bandsaw to 13 degrees, and now I can make that cut. Now I can offer up that 13-degree cut, and I'm just going to use a straight edge to see if that looks good, and it doesn't. You can see there's a gap in the middle, so I probably need to take another millimeter or so off this side. Now I'm just going to use the hand plane to try and bring this up to that mark, and I've got my blade skewed slightly to take a bigger pass on the side that I need to remove the most material from. And now that angle matches really nicely. Now I can mark up the shape of the wing. It needs to start there. I'm basically taking some reference measurements from this wing and replicating it onto this, and then I can just freestyle the shape.
After tilting my bandsaw table back to 90 degrees, I could cut away the waste material.
Obviously this is far from the perfect bandsaw blade to be using for such an operation, but I can refine this shape using my electric file.
I used the electric file to smooth over the curves.
This is what we have now, and I'm quite happy with that. I think it should look good.
Then I applied glue and added the wing.
To hold this while the glue dries, I'm going to use one pin nail, and at the top a couple of staples. For the next wing, which will go here, I don't need to worry about cutting any awkward angles, but I will need to cut a curve to match the curvature of the leg here.
So I marked up the second wing, cut it out and refined the shape as I had for the first wing. And then I could glue and nail it in place and shape it to match the curvature of the leg using my electric file. I then added new support blocks to the back, securing in place with some brad nails before adding screws.
So this leg has split at the glue joint, so I'm going to separate this and then I can remove any old glue and re-glue it together.
I used the disc sander to remove the old glue and get a nice joint, and then re-glued it with pin nails and a squeeze clamp.
I also need to remove the glue from these leg support pieces.
I used a chisel and some sandpaper to remove any old glue from the surface and get back to bare wood.
These support blocks for the leg are pretty solid, but I think I'm just going to reinforce them with some screws anyway, just for extra strength.
After drilling some pilot holes, I then flattened the top of the leg. I did a dry fit and it wasn't sitting very well, so I made a few more refinements before adding glue and then securing it in place with screws. I added kind of a pocket hole by drilling at an angle through the leg supports and into the leg itself to add some more strength.
I'm going to reinforce this solid leg with some screws too.
Finally, I placed the unit on a flat surface just to check for wobble, and luckily there wasn't any. That was the repairs complete to the bottom of the unit. In the next episode, I will tackle the rest of the jobs.